Guys, in the 3 weeks it's taken me to make this video, Bungie has completely and utterly fallen apart. So you can expect a video on that in roughly a week. But anyways, enjoy the video.
Barn down, how about you kill yourself?
The good old hot take. The necessary evil of, well, essentially every world, including Destiny 2. And that is why I've asked you guys what your worst takes are. Also, I can make a video and profit off of you guys giving me free content. I also took the liberty of finding some other hot takes on the internet because, to be honest, some of your takes weren't that hot. Shout out to this Reddit thread. Anyways, let's get right into it. To start things off with an absolute scorcher, we have a take from Tundra, who says that sunsetting was a good thing. I'm not sure if he's delusional or what, but let's take a look at what we lost from sunsetting. Real quick, I'm going to define what I see as sunsetting. I define sunsetting as an umbrella term for the removal of all of the content prior to Beyond Light, not just the weapons. So if you want to say that sunsetting is different from vaulting, just know that I'm kind of including them together here. With that out of the way, we lost the Red War campaign, Curse of Osiris, the Warmind campaign and Escalation Protocol event, the entire Forsaken campaign, which is arguably one of the greatest campaigns Bungie has ever put out, all of the Leviathan raid layers, Scourge of the Past and all of the Black Armory content, any ritual weapons and seasonal gear you farm for prior to Beyond Light, and also Gambit and Gambit Prime being separate game modes. And that's just the things that I can remember. I'm sure there were more things that got removed with sunsetting. Now, at first, this looks bad. And the Destiny 2 Twitter page taking a screenshot of the 2 cutscenes, and those cutscenes not being in the game anymore, and the Twitter note to people like bullying them, that's pretty funny, man. But the major reason Bungie sunsetted content was so that they could make the game smaller and more accessible for their player base while removing content that wasn't played as often. And I think that's a fair argument to make, but some people are willing to waste the 200 gigabytes plus of space on Call of Duty, a game that scams you every year for the same thing. So I'm not sure if storage space was ever actually a problem. Another goal of Bungie's with sunsetting was to essentially force players to use new weapons every few seasons and shift the meta, which has worked kinda. I think the meta changes mostly just came from changes Bungie makes to the weapons. So with all of this said, I do not agree that sunsetting was a good thing. Sunsetting to me seems pointless looking back on it, as it really didn't do anything but take content away from the community. I see where you're coming from, but this is a bad take, Tundra. Our next take comes from Reddit, where this user believes that champions should be removed from the game or all weapons should be able to stun them. And to be honest, I agree. To an extent. It does feel like Bungie gatekeeps builds by forcing us to use different weapons that we don't want to use every season. Like, I don't want to run an auto rifle in my Grandmaster Nightfall, man. No amount of money can make me use this terrible gun. I've already heard a take on this from a YouTuber by the name of November Hotel, and in his video, which I'll put up on screen right now, he explains the problems with champions.
I've always found that how Bungie implemented champions has always been more annoying than challenging. Champions are not hard. They just restrict your loadout options. They're beyond the point of bullet sponges. They're like nuclear missile sponges. And to add insult even further, they are very buggy when it comes to their stun mechanics.
When I see a difficult enemy, like an Elden Ring per se, I want to go fight it. And when I finally beat it, I feel an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. But when I see a champion in Destiny, I think to myself, oh boy, another champion. Let me switch my entire loadout just to beat one enemy. And although I'm aware that you can make this argument about anything, like being forced to use damage weapons on raid bosses, I don't think it's remotely the same as raid bosses. Raid bosses are encounters that you prepare for, whereas champions pop up in any and all sorts of content Bungie put out nowadays. Whether it be Grandmaster Nightfalls, raids, hell, even the seasonal activity. It gets really infuriating to load in and see a barrier hobgoblin and immediately have to switch my loadout. Despite all of the problems I have with them, I'll admit that Bungie has added a lot more things to the game to allow for champion stunning to be easier, like Radiant and Ignition stunning. Stasis freezing also works as like a stun method, and Strand can also suspend and disable pretty much any champion. But the problem still arises that I have to switch my loadout to take care of these certain enemies that are not bosses. And the other issue that I have with this is switching my loadout might not even work, as some of these champions have stun mechanics that don't always function as intended. They're buggy as hell. There's this old sequelitis by Egoraptor about Ocarina of Time where he brings up time creating the illusion of difficulty, and I think that applies here.
Okay, on the flip side, complicated enemies are a total joy to fight. The source of a lot of Ocarina's problems is that the game's idea of difficulty is waiting. There is so much goddamn waiting. Every enemy has a period where they just stand around and do fucking nothing, and attacking them during this time is useless. Waiting is not a difficult thing to do, but it creates the illusion of difficulty because it takes up your time. A fight feels like an ordeal when you have to devote a decent amount of time to it.
Just because champions take quite a bit of time to defeat doesn't mean they're difficult. It just means that they're annoying. And to our friend from Reddit, you might be onto something. To me, this is a good take. A while ago on Twitter, I saw one of my favorite Destiny content creators post this tweet. And although this isn't a take per se, the idea of this happening is technically a take, so I'm gonna roll with it. Now, I'm not sure if Lucky 10p agrees with it himself, but I can tell you one thing. I definitely think it's dumb. There should be no other way for you to acquire spoils other than raids. Spoils of war were designed for raid loot specifically. Raids are supposed to be the pinnacle of difficulty when it comes to PvE content in Destiny 2. If you don't play the raids, you shouldn't be able to get the loot from the raids. It's as simple as that. And even with this being said, there are tons of ways for non-raiders to get raid loot. There are even videos on it on YouTube about every possible chest you can get that gives you raid loot without you having to do the raids. Like loading up Last Wish and skipping past Cali to get the first secret chest. It's not that hard. And although I wish I could see where the non-raiders are coming from in this one, I'm not willing to let you guys get the same loot as me. Not until you suffer in an LFG for a couple hours. This is a bad idea and a bad take. Now, our final take comes from probably the best Destiny player I know personally. That man is Arcize. Here's just a quick peek at his raid report. All right, and we're back. Here's his take. Arcize thinks that Destiny 1 was irrefutably a worse game than Destiny 2. And if not for nostalgia, we wouldn't even be having a discussion on which was the better game. And I hate to say I agree with him on this one, because I like Destiny 1 a lot. Destiny 1 gave me so much, and I'm probably not here today without it. But after thinking about it for a while, I think Arcize might be right. If you watch the channel, you know I've played Destiny 1 a lot, and also incredibly recently. And yet, every time I play it, I don't have the same feeling I did when I was 12 and 13, sitting on my couch, chilling after school, after doing my homework. It just doesn't feel the same. In fact, I found myself feeling kind of disappointed. It didn't live up to the memories. It was still fun, don't get me wrong, but it lacked a lot of things that I had become so accustomed to in the Destiny of today. From a standpoint of graphics, a variety of builds that may or may not work on Champions, accessibility on the PC and all consoles as well as cross-platform, features like mantling, not having to go to orbit every time I wanted to go to a new location, way more fashion options due to transmog, Destiny 2 kind of just clears. The only thing I'd say Destiny 1 does better is difficulty and the fact that it has Wrath of the Machine, which is probably still my favorite raid to this day. And to the hardcore players and OGs, this may be more appealing, but Destiny 2 is a much bigger game than Destiny 1 ever was. Don't get me wrong, Destiny 1 was still popular, but Destiny 2 at its peak has been a top 5 game on the Steam charts multiple times. And throughout all consoles and Steam combined, it averaged like, 800,000 players? That's crazy. And as such, the game becoming easier to accommodate a wider audience just makes sense from a business perspective. As much as we want Bungie to focus more on their hardcore and dedicated player base, to make money, they can't really afford to do that. They have to find a way to introduce new players and make the game seem appealing to people that haven't played it before. And if the game is ridiculously hard, no one's going to want to play it. I also want to make it clear that I don't agree with Bungie making the game easier, because I really like difficult games and difficult activities in Destiny. But at the same time, the hard content that I've done recently in Destiny 1 wasn't really hard. I just think that being young and Destiny being a new type of game for me made me think it was harder than it actually was. And although this might make a lot of people angry, I think Arcize might have the best take of them all. Well, that's all I've got for this video. This is really fun to make, so if you want to see another hot take video, send me your hot takes on Twitter, Discord, or here in the comment section on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already and like the video. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace. Take care of yourselves.